Final hour OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll get to our best bets later in the hour, the final night of the NHL regular season. The NBA is already into their play-in, and Jimmy Butler looks like MCL injury. Tried to fight through it. It was actually a good game last night. Philly got through, though.
Philly tried to fight his teammate on the bus, too, apparently.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff going on, man. Jimmy Butler's a different cat. He's a different cat. But
apparently he was yelling at Herro 9 for 27, and then Herro swung and missed him, and he yelled 9 for 28.
No way that happened.
No.
Dude, that is just a greasy scoop on Twitter, but apparently who
great.
knows how these stories even come out, but apparently these two were going at it on the bus. And I don't know what Jimmy Butler's like behind the scenes, but he must have been just giving it to Tyler Herro.
Well, they better figure it out because he's not going to play tomorrow night, I believe it is. They've got Chicago.
His knee's blown out.
Yeah, his MCL's done. He's done for weeks. And Zion's done, too. You see, Zion was playing great the other night.
Oh, my God. I saw that. Didn't he drop 40 or something and then blew his knee out?
Yeah, he had 40 points. He was taking it to LeBron, AD. He looked great. They were up big. He looked amazing. And then, he had another injury, and he's out. Like
we did biggest Band-Aid. If you gave me next week 7 top 10 Band-Aids of all time, is he one?
Well, no, he's not at one. Greg Oden would be number one, sadly. Sadly, Greg Oden.
Street clothes.
Well, street clothes, I know, but street clothes is at least done enough to play
He won a championship.
in a championship and get his money. Like Greg Oden went ahead of Kevin Durant. And was
Portland, man, first overhaul.
Yes, and he never could play. Like his knees
he looked
were
like
shot.
He was 45 when he was 19.
He was the oldest looking 19-year-old in the history of the earth. And he was a great college player, and KD was obviously great. And that just it never materialized because of injuries. But Zion's not far off, like he's not, and. I don't know. It's too bad because he's a great talent and, coming out of Duke, first overall pick. And I just don't know if it's ever going to work for him because if you can't rely on a guy, we always say it, the best ability is availability. You have to be able to play. You have to have a coaching staff and a management that can trust that you're actually going to play.
Yeah.
And it's just not the case. It's too bad.
I don't know.
It's too bad for Zion. But, yeah.
That guy's also, he's had what do you call it? Like he fluctuates,
His weight?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's had weight issues. I mean, let's call it what it is. As a pro athlete, he has not been in shape since day one walking into the league. But that's what was so disappointing the other night is he looked great. Like he's put in a lot of work and he looked great.
That was what was supposed to change after the first series of major injuries where he literally said he changed the way he walked. Mm-hmm. And ate and did this and did that, and then he was just a Band-Aid again. It's crazy stuff.
It sucks. I mean, you top-tier talent, all of that type of stuff, but if you can't stay healthy, how do you trust? That's the bigger thing. As a fan, how do you trust when okay, I'm ready, I'm in shape, I'm ready to rock? Is a guy ever going to play a full season?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, this Jimmy Butler, Tyler Herro stuff is wild. Like this
I told you.
Sounds like it's legit. It's not just a Twitter story.
Yeah, like there's legitimate reporters from Miami reporting that Butler and Herro had to be separated after Butler was chirping him. 9 for 27. That's nothing. What were they saying to Klay Thompson the night before? He went 0 for 10.
Oh yeah.
Like what was Draymond yelling to Klay?
Jeez.
But yeah, that's Jimmy Butler just must be because remember him in Minnesota when he wanted out. And Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, he hated them. He couldn't take it. And he got his way. He got out. He got to Philly, and the rest is history. All right, Meghan Chayka later in the hour, teeing up Leafs Bruins, the Hart Trophy race, among many other things, including the other 3 Canadian teams going to the playoffs, and the likelihood that we're going to see a Canadian team in the Cup final for the first time in quite some time. But there's been a lot of league news. I guess the Board of Governors, everything's all good. Arizona's out. They're on their way to Utah, not Salt Lake City. On their way to Utah. Here's Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider. Is that substantial? It's Utah instead of Salt Lake City, Pierre, or what?
That is the one part of the team name that has been decided that they're going with Utah and not Salt Lake City, which isn't shocking, of course, because Ryan Smith owns the Utah Jazz.
Right.
similar branding approach there. But as you may have seen other people report as well, but I also put out there, and we talked about it insider trading, they're in no hurry to name the nickname part of it.
Why, Pierre? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Well, because they want to take their time and hear from their fans and hear about ideas. They've hired a firm to help with their logo and branding, and they will name it when they feel the time is right. And if they're not ready for the start of the season, they won't have a team name. By the way, I just retweeted Ryan Smith.
Yeah, do you see that? That's crazy.
I just retweeted him. He said 6,000 season ticket deposits already in the first 2 hours.
Okay.
That means 40. That means 40.
Well, I don't know. I honestly think this is going to be a pretty good success, but I don't know that. That's just
yeah. I have no frame of reference. I know, Noodles. You're now bullish on this. You have stock in the Utah Yeti or Mammoth or whatever we're going to call them. But I have no frame of reference on what that means. 6,000 in 2 hours. I don't know. Like, how does that compare to when the Jets went home?
Well,
I don't know.
Already more people that can go to a game at Mullet Arena.
That's true. That's true.
And we should make light of that. I do feel for the diehard Coyotes fans. That was a tough scene last night. But again, I told you guys this many times, including last week. I mean, the league does want to go back there one day, and so I don't know. You guys have probably read a lot of the details, but here's some of them that we talked about in insider trading. I mean, so Alex Morello gets $1 billion as part of this. As part of this. Transaction, and he gets 5 years. If he builds a rig within 5 years, he can reactivate the Coyotes brand and franchise at a cost of $1 billion to the NHL. So that's essentially the terms there for Alex Morello to get the Coyotes back within the next 5 years. I will tell you that in talking to governors around the league, not a whole lot of people think he can pull this off. Which probably doesn't surprise you. No, I know. But, I mean, why would you want to give back that $1 billion, I guess? But,
Pierre,
the league still wants to be there one day, sort of a dog. And I want to stress that.
Fine.
I just think within the next 10 years, you'll see a team there again. I just think it's going to be with a different owner.
What do you think the reaction of the players, if you could just take a stab at it, what do you think they make of going to Utah? Like, are they shocked? Are they pissed? Are they generally excited? What would that reaction be if you could gauge the players?
Well, it's hard to tell. I think there was definitely some apprehension at first. I will tell you that Ryan Smith just finished a meeting in Arizona with the Coyotes players. The sense out of that room is that it went fairly well, but I'm always, I'd always like to hear from everyone, not just one person on that. But they did meet, and next week the Coyotes players are invited to go to Salt Lake, visit the rink, visit the other facilities. SCG wants to build training facilities. They plan on, renovating the rink because both ends have sightline issues at the Delta Center right now. The Delta Center itself has actually been renovated aggressively for the Jazz, of course, but they're going to need some work for hockey sightlines over the next few years, and that's what they intend on doing. Also, by the way, as an interesting sidebar, the LA Kings and the Vegas Golden Knights announced a preseason game for September 23rd at the Delta Center in Salt Lake 2 months ago. And so I haven't got an answer yet, but as of now, that game is still listed. So here's a new NHL team in Utah potentially having a preseason game between Vegas and LA. It's no big deal, but it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I would think they would have to pull it. And, you were talking about the Delta Center. I played there. They will adjust it. But the one thing, and I don't know if you would agree with this, Pierre, and maybe if you talk to people in the league, like Ryan Smith has run a successful sports franchise. He owns it. Like, do you not agree, like, stable ownership should be step one for owning any type of organization? And it sounds like Ryan Smith has his act together. And I'm not sure, I can't even remember how many owners Arizona/Phoenix have had where it seems to have been a gong show year after year, where it seems like this guy has got his act together and is pretty organized. So wouldn't that sell the league right there?
Big time. I mean, given that he has been within the NBA ownership circle now for a while, and you don't see any stories from that. I mean, the way I've put things so far, and I always put caveats in all this because let's see how it plays out. But I think this has resulted in a significant ownership upgrade. But in terms of the market, let's see how it plays out. I'm not ready to call that a home run yet because, again, I might be in the minority as a Canadian citizen. I truly believe the Arizona market can be a success for hockey if it's ever finally done right, and it never has been. They've never had the rink. They've never had stability at ownership. If they can ever get those two magical things to line up in Arizona, I actually think that's going to be a dynamite market. But, we won't know that until we ever see it. But in the meantime, I think there's no question they've landed here with a billionaire owner who already runs an NBA team who is pretty excited about what he wants to do with this hockey team.
Pierre, what playoff series has got you excited?
I mean, listen, I can't believe how amazing these matchups are. We're still waiting on a couple for the West. I'm headed to Edmonton to start my playoffs, and I'm so intrigued to see whether it's Vegas or LA. There's just no easy answer there. Montreal. I was going to say Toronto, Boston. I think it's going to be unbelievable. And, I think it was Hayes last hour that may have mentioned this. I was getting ready for the show, but I think it's totally underplayed what Boston did last year in the first round. I think being a 135-point team and losing the first round to the 8th seed. Now, I get it. As it turns out, in hindsight, Florida was way better than an 8th seed. But I think Boston has gotten a pass on that, if that makes any sense. And I'm not – listen, I get why the Leafs have their playoff demons brought up all the time. But in the here and now, the team that has to deal with a little more, more demon action has to be Boston after that upset last year. So I just don't think that can be sugarcoated. If you're going to hammer the Leafs for their inability to go deep all these years in the Matthews era, you can't just let Boston walk in what happened last year either, is, I guess, the point I would make.
Yeah, and that's why there could be some nervous energy early in this series. And yet, they always seem to go 7. It's also different, like behind the bench, where it was Bruce Cassidy in 18-19. Now it's Jim Montgomery. It was Mike Babcock in 2018, 2019. Like there are certain players that obviously are still a part of both organizations, but the goaltending has turned over, the coaching has turned over. A lot of veterans have come and gone, and it sets up to be a great series. I think Colorado-Winnipeg is right in there as well in terms of the way both teams have come into the playoffs, and Winnipeg's red hot. Colorado's really stumbling. Winnipeg's Battle of Florida
will be unreal too.
It has to be, right? Because listen, I think Florida wins that series, but I could totally understand why people would pick Tampa based on the way they're playing and their history specifically against the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and again, if we end up with Vegas Edmonton, that's a banger. I mean, that is right off the hop. That's a Western Conference Final series in the first round. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying anything away from the Kings. It's just that this year has been harder on LA with the coaching change and everything else. Vegas, Edmonton would be absolutely nuts if that's the case. The other thing I would say about Boston, Toronto is that I know a lot of people are already, talking about the Bruins' advantage in goal, and it's clearly that's a fact, no matter who's in goal for Boston. But by the same token of where I would give that advantage clearly to Boston, again, I think the Leafs have a huge advantage offensively in terms of their depth. I mean, the Bruins are a top-heavy offensive team. And to me, don't match up that well with the Leafs in terms of their depth. If Nylander really starts the playoffs in the third line, the Bruins don't have that.
Mm-hmm. Although if he plays like he did down the stretch, then he's a third liner. I mean, that's the thing. He's been a good playoff
player, though.
Yeah,
playoff Willie is what we've seen.
He has been. He has been. They're obviously banking on that. I mean, not a lot has been made of it. That does he have a lip on that he's on the third line? I don't know. He better not, because come playoff time, if that's the case, then they're in trouble. But if you're right, like Willie's a guy that he is capable of taking over games. He has performed in the playoffs. And if he gets third line matchups and third pairing matchups and he's out there and he's in the mood, the Bruins cannot match that. Like their third line is not even close in terms of that level of talent. But it's on Willie to do it. It's on the Leafs to do it.
And the final thing on that series to me, and maybe it's a little simple, but I love that the Leafs start on the road in Boston. Mm-hmm. I think I've mentioned this before, but just having been around the Leafs last year, especially, I could feel, and this is one of those things where it's like, are you seeing what you're not seeing? But I sense that every time they started a series that they were tight. They ended up overcoming that against Tampa, but they're not against Florida. And it's just this sense of, we're in Toronto, people are going nuts in and outside the building. Let's put on a show. They get to go into Boston and just try to focus on what you need to do in that first shift. I know it sounds silly. I think it's a really nice advantage for them to be starting there.
What's the consequences? I mean consequences, Pierre, but the teams just have to, if it doesn't work out because of some of the matchups in the first round. For example, Connor McDavid said it's cup or bust. What if they get bounced in the first round? Like, where would the Oilers go from there?
I think it's the biggest story of the offseason if that happens. Similarly to how I felt there could be change in Toronto last year if they didn't get what they wanted, and we obviously saw it with Kyle Dubas leaving. But, this is a huge offseason for the Oilers. Leon Draisaitl has a year left on his deal. Like, I'm just going by facts here. I'm not trying to dress it up more than it is. The Oilers have to go to him this summer and say, let's talk extension. They have no choice. Can't have Leon Draisaitl.
Or you got to trade him. Yeah. There's no other way around it.
So this is what I'm saying. And my point is Leon Draisaitl's decision, and we have no intel. He is not no one around him has hinted. We have no idea what he's going to say. It might be because he's waiting to see how these playoffs go, by the way. But his decision has to have at least some measure of impact on where 97 views his future. Now, I think deep down, I think McDavid just looks like a pretty happy soul there in Edmonton, and I think there's a chance to believe that he wants to be an Oiler a long time. But I'm just saying all these things end up being connected, right? So these are huge playoffs. Ken Holland's deal's up as GM. There's a lot of things that I love about that team, but you can't, to your point, you can't ignore the layers that are attached to what this playoff drive means to them, to Oilers, the franchise. I think it's huge, more so than any other team in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't think those guys go anywhere until they win. That's the way I look at it.
I can see that.
I think, and if they don't win this year, I think Draisaitl will sign a short-term deal and stay. And McDavid, to me, I think they want to finish a job there, and then all bets are off. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, I hope that's the case for Edmonton. I think you're probably onto something, Noodles. I guess the question is, what if they get bounced in the first round? Do they feel like they're further away, or
against the defending Cup champs too? It's not like they're playing some bozo team.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying before in the last hour, guys. There is going to be 4 or 5 Cup contending teams done in 10 days.
Yeah.
So to me, you've got to be smart about firing people and trading people and doing all of that just because you run into a like team that is just as good as you. To me, there will be knee-jerk and, on our side, we'll be talking about big storylines. But to me, I think that's where management has to be a lot more cooler heads prevail and go, hey, we've got a pretty good team. We got to go back at it, type of thing. That would be my thought process. I'm not even talking about Edmonton. I'm talking Winnipeg. Teams like Winnipeg. Winnipeg could lose in the first round. They're a hell of a team right now.
I think that could apply to Florida. If Florida gets bounced in the first round, do you start looking at, wow, last year was just a miracle, everything broke your way, but that's, 2 of the last 3 years you got bounced early by Tampa.
With some contracts coming up. Sam Bennett's up.
Reinhardt's up.
It doesn't mean that people won't change.
No one wants to leave that team, though. So, that's a pretty happy lifestyle there, and they think they can win for a long time. The series I was going to mention that we haven't mentioned is Vancouver-Nashville, and I get why. I mean, the wild card against number 1. Matthew Tkachuk came off the ice recently when the Panthers were in Toronto in early April, and we were just going around the league. You know how it is. You talk to guys and he's getting his skates off. And unsolicited, Tkachuk said to a couple of us that were standing there, the team to watch in the West, I'm telling you right now, is the Nashville Predators. He goes, I would not want to play them in the first round. And that he just said that the way that they are relentless and the way that they play, he said, watch out. Anyway, just funny when you hear that from a star player.
Yeah.
Not even in their conference, but that was his viewpoint.
What if Bryan Hayes said that, though, Pierre?
Ooh. And then you know.
Then it means something. Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting how that, like, Vancouver's had a remarkable year, and it's somehow gone. It hasn't gone under the radar. But with Matthews chasing 69, the Oilers season being what it's been, and now they get Nashville, which is not a hugely public team. Like, comparing in terms of hype, Oilers, Vegas, Leafs, Bruins,
right?
Jets, Avs is way sexier, yet Vancouver's been the best Canadian team all year. And
absolutely,
they've got, yes, you're right about Nashville. They've been red hot. They're a good team. They got a lot of playoff pedigree, cup champion pedigree there in some ways. But Vancouver can get them. Like, Vancouver could be in the second round 10 days from now, and we're like, oh, look at this. Just keeps rolling. It just keeps getting better. And it really started opening night, and they never looked back. So, we'll see. That's why they play the games.
Rick Tocchet will be my Jack Adams. I don't vote on that award, but he'd be my pick.
I think he's going to win it. I agree with you there.
How about some suggestions, guys?
You want suggestions?
I've got a six-pack. There's easily six that could win, and I think Rick Tocchet is the leader. But, I mean, Laviolette, John Cooper, Chris Knobloch, Andrew Brunette. That's a five-pack, and I'm not even trying.
What about John Cooper? 3 months without, Vasilevsky.
What about Paul Maurice?
Yeah. What about Monty down in Boston?
Our guy.
What about Peter DeBoer in Dallas? Top team in the league.
Exactly. Peter DeBoer.
It's not an easy task at all, but I think there is a separator. I think a lot of people are leaning towards Rick Tocchet, myself included. But it's you can make a case, just like these playoffs, you can make a case for 10, 12 teams to win the Stanley Cup, maybe more. Same thing. I could make a case for 8, 10 coaches and how well things have gone for them.
Well, and they're going to have an award show, right, Pierre? That was announced today?
It wasn't announced, but what I put out, Brian, is that the league is trying to finalize that. Yeah,
okay.
They haven't announced it yet. They're trying to. It's been kind of a difficult thing to wrestle their hands around, and I think it's because it's such a busy week in Vegas that week. There's a huge UFC event, I think, on the same week as the NHL draft this year, and they're trying to secure a venue to have an award show on the eve of the NHL draft, so on Thursday, June 27th, because there was talk they just may not have a show this year.
Yeah, we can think of a few places in Vegas. Tell Bettman to send us an email. We'll hook him up. Find a place or two. Get a little greasy down there. That'd be fun. All right, Pierre. Well, we'll leave it there, buddy. One more night in the regular season, and then it's officially go time.
Right on. I'll go check on Strutty and Rashog for you guys at Edmonton, okay?
Yes, please do. Say hi to the boys for us.
Right on.
There he is. Pierre LeBrun, our TSN hockey insert. We just cut him off. Like, that's enough. He's on his way to Edmonton,
he says a stupid little...
He's got his right on. I love that. That's a good out. He's got a note. He's got a phrase. I support that. So, yeah, he's off to Edmonton. That's interesting because whenever I go down to the Leaf playoff games, usually Pierre's down there. I'm sitting right there with him. And
well, I think there's certain people getting assigned to certain series,
well,
right?
Of course. Yeah, I mean...
But, yeah,
he'll be out there in Edmonton. All right.
Are you going to be? You're going to try and make it to a game?
I'll be in the buildings. I'll be there every game if they're playing. I'm
going
down.
It's back. Nice. SC Superstar mojo is back.
You can find me on SportsCenter right after the games.
What a line!
Yeah.
Oh, you're just selling it for yourself.
I'll have things to say. All right.
Yeah.
Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel coming up later in the hour. Meghan Chayka will join us. Her take on Leafs Bruins. What are the numbers telling us about which way this could sway? The Hart numbers as well. And the other Canadian teams. Where are we at with Edmonton, Winnipeg, Vancouver? A 4-pack of Canadian teams. 4 tickets being punched. Starts on Saturday. So we'll get to that. More still to come. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll get to our best bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Meghan Chayka's joined me in studio, and good to see you, Meghan. We were just talking about how tough it is tonight to make bets. Last game of the season.
It's like a trap game tonight. Right?
Yeah.
You just don't really know.
Who's going to play, how they're going to play. Like this Edmonton-Colorado game could be, we were joking, handshake under the rafters, just no hitter. Let's go out and play and get out of here. So you're preparing for the playoffs. Leafs, Bruins, we've been talking about it, obviously, the last couple of days. The history is what it is, but based on what you do, you don't necessarily have to look at 1959, the last time the Leafs beat the Bruins in the playoffs, which, again, yesterday we pointed out, never heard that when they played in 13 or 18 or 19, but now that's the new thing.
How about some positive numbers, Megan? Give us some positive numbers
I'm
that
trying.
says
I'm
the
trying.
Leafs, it swings in the favor of the Leafs. Try to give us
Can
something.
you give us anything for a Leaf fan that would suggest, okay, this is moving in the right
This is
direction
the
for
year?
them? Yes. Give us anything you've got.
I mean, the good news is I actually have them just under 51% as the favorites. So I am against FanDuel. I think the Leafs have a tiny bit of an edge, but I mean, it's a coin flip again.
Right.
So there are key components where I feel a little more comfortable with the Leafs this season. And one is just not necessarily their strengths, but like Boston's weaknesses. The Leafs get to the middle of the ice. They're like second in shots from the slot. They pass a lot to the slot. The Boston Bruins are a lot worse this year. They're like 16th in like letting people in the slot and shooting. Last year they were third. The year before they were first. So they were like smothering teams, not allowing them in the slot area. This year they're kind of fast and loose defensively, which plays great for the Leafs. The other area that I love for the Leafs is like special teams, the power play, right? The Leafs are lights out. Boston, they had a couple good months at the start of the season, and since then they've been like fourth, fifth worst in the league.
Right.
So if they can capitalize on power plays and really get to the slot, they can cause a lot of havoc. And I mean, the Matthews story this season,
right,
69 goals.
Right. And we were talking about that party coming in, like how does he carry that over? It's, even with what you just said, which I think that'll be music to the ears of Leaf fans, the idea that he gets in the slot a lot, he gets a lot of shots off. I mean, no one volume shoots like him, but one thing to have 16 attempts in a meaningless game against Tampa. Boston's not going to allow that.
No.
Right? He's not going to likely have any games where he has 15, 16 shot attempts. If he does, it'll be crazy to see in the playoffs. But it's unlikely. It's more likely it shrinks into, can he get 7, 8 off? Can he get 2 or 3 good ones? But I guess what you're suggesting is the Bruins might offer that up to him. And if he does, there's a good chance it's going in based on who he is.
And secondary scoring for the Leafs as well, right? They're not just a one-dimensional team. Domi has been playing up on his line. He's a great playmaker. He likes to be aggressive, which is a nice addition to that first line. So moving Marner down where you sort of spread out the attack, I think is not a bad way to like structure the Leafs in terms of having like a rolling offense, not just having like 1 or 2 impactful lines. So I think that's key, and that's something that Boston misses too, right? Pasternak is 107 points. The next closest for Boston is Marchand at under 70. Like the chasm there is massive for Boston. So they have more of that problem than Toronto does this year, which is amazing for the Leafs.
Right.
Megan, what do you make of the goaltending? And, as far as Samsonov and maybe some of his underlying numbers, from a positive or a negative standpoint?
I mean, I don't mind goaltending in general in this series. I think it could go both ways for both teams. I even have Swayman and Allmark around the same for goal save above expected. Same with Toronto. They're 8, 9 over expected. So it could be a really good X factor for the season, the series too, of which goaltender outplays which and who actually ends up playing. I mean, when you look at goaltending though in other series, you have Hellebuck that's like outstanding, almost 23 goals above expected. Demko. So I think for like the Canadian teams in general, goaltending will be a story in the first round. It'll just be which way does the coin flip for Toronto, Boston. I mean, I think both GMs will be sweating at night thinking about goaltending.
Yep.
Meg, how does things change in the playoffs as far as the physicality? If someone's a possession guy in the regular season, everybody knows come playoff time that the sport is played a lot different. It's a lot more physical. It's nasty out there. How does that affect the numbers? Does that come into play when calculating this type of stuff?
Definitely. I think actually analytics helps in that because the game gets tighter, right? You have less space and time. People are far more competitive. So like passes under pressure, not being a volume shooter, you're not going to have 14 shots in a in a game in the playoffs. You're going to have someone who's on you that you're going to play man-to-man, basically.
Is there players going into this playoff in the past where it's like they're fabulous regular season numbers, and then there's like, who's the biggest dip guy going into this? Do I not want to know that answer? Or?
That may not be.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be like positive analytically, or else players might not like me. But I mean, it's true though, right? The game can change in the playoffs. You have less space and time. And to those players' defense, if a team knows that they have to shut down only a small handful of players, that's a problem in the playoffs.
Right.
You want that depth. A scary team is like Dallas. 5-on-5 goals during the regular season. They have 2 of the top 4 lines in the league. In the league.
Right.
So that's something that every team in the West is saying, "Oh, great, we got to play Dallas."
Yeah, it could be Vegas if Vegas loses tonight.
It could be, yes.
Which is pretty wild when you think about it. Meghan Chayka in studio, FanDuel ambassador, her co-founder of Stathletes as well. You saw Nashville recently.
I did.
You're in the building to see them play. They are a team that has been largely under the radar because of the way they started. Even at the trade deadline, there was talk of Barry Trotz trading multiple pieces. Maybe Soros being one of them that he wasn't sure if he was going to keep. And then all of a sudden, around the deadline, they take off. Post-deadline, they're on fire. They go like 16-0-2 after Andrew Brunette took cookies away and said you can't go see U2 at the Sphere in Vegas, which I love because that's just an old school, like, wild story. But they got Vancouver. Vancouver's been great this year. But what do you make of Nashville and their chances of disrupting things when it comes to the Canadian chances of getting through to the second round?
Well, and I mean, you could use that U2, element to break up the season of how that shifted. I saw Chicago, Nashville. I had to get a viewing of Bedard in his rookie year in Chicago. It was amazing. His shot's incredible. But Nashville just looked like they were having fun. They were playing great hockey. They were making crisp passes. And the Canucks Preds are going to be a really good first round matchup. They established the cycle a lot. The Canucks are first in shot attempts off the cycle. Nashville 7th. Expected goals, Canucks 2nd. And so any sustained pressure, they're getting really high quality shots. Nashville's 3rd. So this is going to be a great series in terms of like the patience in the offensive zone. They both score off rebounds. And most goals scored off rebounds are actually 45 for the Predators, 40 for the Canucks, and 39 for the Rangers. So both of them are trying to get to the net, create those second chances. They play a similar style, which sometimes I like watching, right? Because you know what they're up against and you know what they're after, and it just will be who does it better. Right, and both really good goalies, right, Noodles? Great goalies.
Yeah.
Like Demko, are you scared, Noodles, about Demko? Like that injury?
I'm not.
Okay.
Don't even bring numbers at me. I believe in them.
I love him too, but only one game. He looked great in that one game, but still.
He did look great. I think with that type of injury, lower body, all of that, I think they allowed him to be 100%. Sometimes you can come back other injuries at 90 and you can kind of fight through it. I think they took the extra time to make sure he was 100% comfortable. They got a rock star of a goalie coach there, Ian Clark. Demko looked really good in that game that he played. If he's even just feeling comfortable, the drop off between Demko and Casey DeSmith. I'll take 80% of Demko just because of how great he is on Casey DeSmith's best game, even though he's played very, very well. I thought he was lights out against Edmonton in that 3-1 win there. So, you look at it, I am just worried just coming off injury, but I'm not worried about Demko's play. He's a rock star. He's a top-tier player, top-tier goalie.
Yeah, he is. Meghan Chayka with us. And the Oilers, we think they'll get Vegas, right? The belief is, how can you bet against Vegas at home against Anaheim? And it's really not a scenario where if Vegas would prefer to lose, they get Dallas. So it's not like there's some mental game where, should we throw this?
Totally.
I don't think you want Dallas more than you want Edmonton. But the Oilers, after the first 15, 20 games, it was carnage. We know what happened. They fired their coach. It was a disaster. But since then, the last 4 months, I believe they have more points or a better point percentage than any other team in the league. Are they better today than they have been in the past? And how do you feel about the Oilers matching up with Vegas, considering Vegas is getting healthy again and it's not surprising anybody?
No, and I mean, whenever you're going against the defending Stanley Cup champion and you have players returning from injuries, that's a problem. We were talking earlier, I don't even know if it's an upset if Vegas takes that series.
No.
I think if you're Edmonton, you wouldn't mind seeing the Kings. They're great defensively. They have structure, but offensively, the well's pretty dry. I think they're 24th in expected goals. So you're not getting a lot of scoring, which would play perfectly into Edmonton's hand that, they can score. Like, they'll win it, game 3-2. But if you're looking at, the Oilers, Vegas, and Vegas has some of those high-end talent like Eichel, Stone, Marchessault has had an incredible season already. You're a little bit more nervous in terms of like rush chances, trading chances with them. I would put the tick of Vegas for defensemen too. They're strong, they're great, they make crisp pass, they don't get caught a lot. It's tough to score against them. So for Edmonton, you have McDavid breaking that 100 assist mark. It's just like a poetic season for him. Oh, I don't have to score goals anymore. Like, maybe he doesn't. Zach Hyman gets 50 goals.
Yeah.
Would we have ever expected that in Toronto?
No, never. Even in Edmonton, I never saw him touching 50. And it's just everything's broken his way. He's been incredible. But I expect his game to carry over to the playoffs. Like, I'm not worried about Zach Hyman. He may not score at the same rate he has during the regular season, but that dude's going to show up and play.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the interesting thing about Hyman is he's actually doing the work too. So he's getting those inner slot shots, he's getting the deflections, the tip-ins, and he's not just getting his stick on it, he's scoring. So he's converting goals at a really healthy rate that's actually sustainable with how other scorers do. And there's a lot of players that get like a similar amount of tips and deflections and just don't put the puck in the net. So kudos to Zach Hyman on this season.
He's been outstanding. Meghan, Chayka in studio, FanDuel, ambassador, co-founder of Stathletes. Everyone in the hockey world's been buzzing about the Hart Trophy, right? Everyone's got a different view. Should it be McKinnon, Kucherov, Matthews, McDavid? Some people throw up Panarin, Pasternak, Hellebuck, Quinn Hughes. Where do you stand on this debate? Because tonight's the last night, and it's go time for that. I mean, the votes will be in, I would guess, soon in the next week.
Next week, yeah.
Yeah, you got to figure this out.
They go in tomorrow, don't they?
They go in tomorrow. Okay, there you go.
You got to have them in by 5 o'clock tomorrow.
Well, we wouldn't know because O and I are excluded from this. But where do you stand on this, Meghan?
Well, the good news is I'm also excluded, so my opinion really doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm on the good
club.
club.
Welcome to the club. Yeah.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
Just 3 losers that don't get to vote on the Hart. Great stuff.
Maybe for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say I put up a chart on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and it was like I insulted every single team at the same time as usual.
Yeah.
I think it's just a different perspective. It's like what do you have as your, what's your list for what makes that Hart Trophy winner? Mm-hmm. Because I think it's wonderful for the NHL that you have so much high-end talent now that you really don't know. Mm-hmm. Like 2 players with 100 assists this season, are you kidding me?
Right.
There's only been another 3 players ever, right? I mean, Wayne Gretzky's 11 times. That's like just insanity. But this has been a season of offense, of actually great goaltending too. There's so many good storylines. Nathan McKinnon, he has like Wayne Gretzky-esque like point scoring streaks at home. I think you can make a compelling
you really can.
Each of them. I mean, Matthews, I honestly don't even want to back off Matthews almost reaching 70.
Yeah.
I think 69 is just equally as impressive with how he did that and the type of stats and analytics to back that up. So even though my chart didn't have him leading on too much in like the shooting categories, catch and release goal, the sort of new age way of scoring, I would have Matthews right up there with any of them.
Right, and puck retrieval, like he's
everything.
As good as it gets.
Well-rounded.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I said last night, I was on with Jay, that, McKinnon, it feels like you're always taking a shot. And that's we're talking about 4 incredible seasons, incredible players. Kidding. But McKinnon, if you include the Quebec years, he's not even establishing a new franchise high. He could tonight. With a couple of points, he'd pass Stastny. He won't have the most goals in franchise history. That would be Michel Goulet. But forget that. Rantanen had 55 last year. He's not going to pass Rantanen. And what I stated last night is the other 3 seasons will be remembered for decades. Like, we will reference Kucherov and McDavid 100 assists, Matthews 69
There's
goals.
My stats.
There's your stats right there. Now in Toronto, they're going to love that. But McKinnon, it's not a memorable season in terms of any box he's checking, yet he's probably going to win the Hart. Like, he's
what do you mean by? I don't understand what you mean by that.
Well, like what I mean by that is Matthews has set a new bar of 69 goals. The modern game began in 05-06 when the salary cap kicked in. The bar was Ovechkin for the last 16 years. Now it's Matthews. That's what you're chasing, right? Bedard's chasing that. The next guy's chasing that. Like, who can get to Matthews and push it beyond his numbers? 100 assists, Gretzky or Lemieux, and now McDavid, Kucherov. We will never forget the year where 2 guys hit 100 assists.
I know, but you can't dispute.
No, I'm not discounting. But what is it that McKinnon has done that you will remember in 15 years?
I think the home point streak, if you want to point to one particular thing, and just, I don't know, just the consistent performance of being the best player on the ice. It's not those landmark things that you just mentioned.
That's what I'm saying.
Let me ask you guys this. What is the definition by the letter of the law of what they're laying out for most valuable player?
It's arbitrary as far as I know.
It's always been the most valuable to their team.
Right, but how do you define that?
But there are different definitions. You guys are making compelling arguments for everyone. Like I don't think there's a bad answer here that we're talking about. Like it's unfortunately somebody's going to lose, but and somebody's not going to be in the top
Someone's not going to be a finalist. Someone won't be in Vegas.
I understand that
as a finalist.
I think it sucks because you could argue, well. And we've talked about this, Hayes, like the goalies could be the most important.
Absolutely.
Because, the league could just be called goalie. If you have good goaltending. So do you take a goalie off the table or not? For me, Hellebuck, I think, is going to be in the finalist. I think
he'll be one of the three?
No, I think he's a top five.
Top five, I see. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, not one of the three.
Okay.
But I think, you look at it and those other four have to be in there. But then you start going, well, how the hell can you leave Panarin off? Or how can you leave Pasternak off? Like
President's Trophy winning team.
How about Quinn Hughes?
Yeah, Quinn Hughes. He's been phenomenal all year.
And this is where the struggle is. And I think people that really take this seriously have been struggling and losing sleep and talking to people throughout the league going, what do you feel? Like you're taking as much information in as possible if you take pride in this. And to me, it's hard because
really
you
tough.
can make an argument and the arguments aren't wrong. Like you could literally go, okay, the bar's been set on goals. The assists have been set. One guy's got 53 points other than the other guy, like Kucherov. Like, is that what he ended with? I didn't check. I haven't done the
53
math,
more than point. Is that what you mean?
53. Yeah, Kucherov 53 more points than the next guy on his team.
Yeah.
And you could argue that team's not in the playoffs. They're not in a wild card spot if Kucherov doesn't play that, doesn't have that season. So there's just so many moving factors. Meghan. That's when you bring in analytics. You start to dig into some of the lower numbers.
You were just singing my song.
Yeah, there you go. That'll put it over the top.
And I would also say, the interesting thing about someone like McKinnon is his skating. So if you look at the analytics and, speed bursts, and, I did an NHL Edge video on him, so you can look it up on NHLEdge.com. But there's a lot of cool data that you have on, how these players skate, their acceleration. If you watch him open ice through the neutral zone, it's otherworldly. It's like McDavid-esque. And I think that's an element of hockey that, you just look at the box score, you don't understand that type of player. McKinnon is just one of those game breakers that's unbelievable on the ice and a pleasure to watch. And he's had a great season.
He's had an unbelievable season. He has. I mean, and I think he's probably going to end up winning it. And all the odds, FanDuel's been saying it, everyone's pushing towards him being a pretty heavy favorite. But someone's going to lose, and one of these four players is not even going to be in Vegas as a 3-pack final.
Well, they might be in another category.
They could be in a different category.
There you go.
In another category.
You're right.
They're okay.
But the crazy thing is that Ted Lindsay, the players may vote any of these guys. This could be one of those years where the Hart is one.
That'll be fascinating. The Lindsay
split vote,
yeah,
too.
It very well could be.
Yeah.
All right, Meghan Chayka. You can find her everywhere. And, of course, doing great stuff with FanDuel, co-founder of Stathletes. Playoffs getting started. You're flying all over the world. A lot going on.
Busy time of the year. But it's a great time of the year.
Great time of year. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
There's Meghan Chayka. Okay, we'll come back with our best bets brought to you by FanDuel. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm on the over. Oilers Avalanche tonight. A lot of stick checks, a lot of stick penalties. Both teams just want to get out of it, right? This will be 6-4, just a mess.
Well, I haven't even seen anything out.
I can't imagine
it's
McDavid's
a back-to-back.
playing.
I don't know if McDavid and Draisaitl will play.
You'd be nuts to play those guys, man.
I agree.
I mean, they're not playing for anything other than
Nothing.
right now. And other than the fact that I guess it's Thursday. You not playing till Monday, but you played last night, so you're fine. And if you're dinged up a little bit, you're probably going to rest a bunch of people. Or McDavid's coming off an injury. The last
you're
thing you
shutting
want
McDavid
is reactivate.
No way you're playing him.
Re-aggravate it exactly.
Yeah, silly too. Jets money line because they've been great recently, and at home in Vancouver, same thing. Vancouver's in. They know what they're doing. And I get the Wild money line because the Flyers playing, and the Flyer got that extension.
Yeah.
Flowers coming back next year at 40.
Little bet.
I love that. I like the Flower at home. Why not? They're playing Seattle. They're playing your boys, the Kraken, the Mammoth.
No, I just got a simple tweet. Mammoths sucks.
Yeah.
Thank you for sending me that tweet.
Appreciate that. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and find thousands of ways to play. Please play responsibly, 19 plus and physically located in Ontario. We'll take a look at all 8 series tomorrow and start looking ahead with the FanDuel odds involved. I think you lay the juice on the Rangers. That's massive juice you got to pay. I don't think Washington wins. The Islanders, though, you get plus money maybe. Tampa plus money. We're talking about that. Take a look at all that tomorrow, and we'll start to really hammer home Leafs Bruins game 1 on Saturday night, and we can't wait for it. It's going to be a great night. It's going to be a great game, great series. We're going to have everything done as of tonight. Jays will be back in action tomorrow. RBC Heritage Open. We got a lot cooking here. TFC's playing. It's great. All right, thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today, TV, radio, podcast, web, we appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Let's go, you mammoth. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.